All right, thank you for everybody that watched my little introduction video, and I promise we're going to get back to the wizard with submachine gun. But if y'all are like me, y'all probably have multiple kind of projects going all at once, and I wanted to show you a couple of things I'm working on. One is this. So these are all 10mm scale miniatures. These are the Bretonnian peasants for Warmaster by Games Workshop, an out-of-print game, but you can still find these miniatures pretty easily. And then this is a 10mm dragon. This is the Forest Dragon from Spellcrow. I assembled it. These are metal, and for both of these, I have primed these with Chaos Black. And this is resin, which has its pros and cons. I didn't show the assembly video in the interest of trying to keep this channel family friendly because, man, this was a pain to try to put together. But I got the dragon together. It's staying together. It's super glued down. And I put it on a small base. It comes on a 60x40 base, but I put it on a 25mm base. The reason is because the eventual goal for this dragon is a piece of terrain, and I want the dragon to sit right here on the terrain to be coming over the top of that mountain. That's going to be a really cool effect. Going to be a little while to get us there. This is something I made kind of recently, and we can talk about terrain building at some point, but let's see kind of what we can do with these miniatures. So both of these miniatures, I say both because this is 5 pieces of the Bretonnian peasants, and the way Warmaster works is you kind of line these up and they look like a mob, like that massed infantry look. And so both of these and this have been primed black. I like the Games Workshop product, the Chaos Black spray primer has never led me astray, so I really use that. And also the thing I want to tell you all is that in no way are these videos meant to be a tutorial. Look, there are a lot of great artists that make beautiful content on YouTube, and those people do amazing work, and I have nothing but respect for them. This videos, this channel is more about someone that maybe has returned to miniature building after taking a long break. I was big into wargaming in the, like a lot of people, I think, kind of my age, late 80s, early mid 90s, and then life gets in the way. You go to school, you get a job, you get married, you get 100 different things, but then return to the hobby, and I've really enjoyed it. And so these are not tutorials, but I'm just trying to show y'all some interesting miniatures and, show y'all what my process is. So feel free to ask questions, because I will definitely be asking questions of the rich and vibrant miniature wargaming community and miniature art community on YouTube. Anyway, so let's see what to do. Let's take a brush, and this is like a 1/2-inch brush from, I'm not an expensive brush person, and so this is like a 1/2-inch brush. I've had it forever. As you can see, it's kind of mangled. And then what I like to do is, after I prime almost anything Chaos Black, because this looks like a big black blob right here, I'll use a lighter color paint, and I will dry brush that on, and then I'll bring out the highlights and give me some guidance about where to apply colors. And so the paint I happen to have here is just something called Game Color by Vallejo. It's a lighter colored paint. It's called Bone White. And I have a little piece of plastic here. We'll use that kind of as a little something to work our paint on. Okay, so all right, so let's see how this works. So I have a dry brush, and I'm just gonna kind of brush it like this. Some people use, you need a bazillion things around you whenever you're working on miniatures, because you never know when you need something. So I have water here, I have a bit of towel, I have a little bit of water to rinse my brush, and I have a bunch of brushes here. But so let's start here, and then why don't we start with the peasants, and then you'll see like this almost magical thing that happens whenever you just apply a light colored dry brush over primed black miniatures, and watch what happens here. So just by doing that, You see all of a sudden it goes from like a black blob to say, oh, okay, I see the peasants now. And let's do the other side. And look what I'm doing with my brush. I'm not like, you know, trying to be all weird and trying to rub it. I'm just trying to get off some of the paint, most of the paint, 80% of the paint, keep some on, and I'm just like dry brushing. That's it. I think, you know, I think a lot of people kind of overcomplicate miniature painting, because the reality is the miniatures themselves are going to do the vast majority of the work. You know, my background, if you could call it that, look at that. See, from like this, we have this. So you can see the huge difference that just a few drops of paint on a dry brush can make. So yeah, I think a lot of people overcomplicate miniature painting. It's not that complicated. I mean, of course, doing anything well is going to take time, you know, but the basics are pretty easy. What I was saying before is that my background is in canvas painting, so you'll see maybe I use, you know, some of those techniques a little bit more. And what kind of amazed me whenever I got back into miniature painting is just how good the miniatures are and how easy it is. So by doing just literally the bare minimum, you get like a great start. Let me finish these up real quick. So, and it's just easy, you know what I mean? Nothing is complicated. Look, I put a little extra on there. It's fine. Just use the other side of the brush. Done. Like don't overcomplicate it. You know, especially the very first, the simplest steps, you know? And you can see the brush I'm using. I'm not using like expensive brushes or anything like that. I think one of the most overrated thing in miniature painting for me personally is an expensive brush. I mean, and nothing but respect for people that, I don't know, spend like $30 on a couple of brushes or more. Because the reality is that miniatures are just brutal on brushes. And if the miniature, the detail that the manufacturer has provided you does most of the work, to me, I think money better spent is on, you know, better paint and better miniatures. Look at that. Look at that. I barely even brushed anything off. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to throw some quick paint on here. So within, I don't know, how long was that? Maybe a minute? You know, from zero, just metal with black primer on it, to this. You can see the difference there. See that? So that's really, I mean, you know, that's how I start off almost all of my painting projects. I'll prime it, almost always black. I love chaos black. And I'll use some light colored paint, whether it's a Shabty Bone, whether it's some kind of white color from Vallejo or whatever. Okay, so let's get onto this dragon. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, okay, it works fine for little bitty miniatures, but how about for this, like, for this big miniature? And again, this is just like, this is the start. This is just like a base. So again, we have the dragon here. Let's try these wings. Let's see what happens. And look at that. Just by doing nothing else, I'm just literally just gently applying paint. And I think it's so funny how people even overcomplicate just dry brushing. Just get a lot of the paint off and then just like, you know, just gently just scrape it along. Look at that. So you can see the two wings. You can see the difference just in the wings where you can automatically start to pick out some of these details. And what we're going to do is, with a series of washes and other colors, we're going to bring out all the details that we highlight. I think that's like an important word, that we highlight using this dry brushing technique. So look at that. Look at that. You can see the scales now on his neck. Let's see his face come to life. And it's almost magic. Look at that. You see that compared to that? So I would say, you know, if you want to start miniature painting, my advice, being a, I don't know, like a enthusiast, kind of amateur kind of person, is get good at priming, get good at building, get good at dry brushing. That those three things, look at that. I mean, this thing is just like beautiful now. If you can do those three things, if you can build pretty well, if you can prime pretty well, and if you can dry brush pretty well, I mean that's like 80% of it. My favorite part of the whole process, my favorite part of the whole process is the end, when I can like show myself or like enjoy the finished product. But you know, just this part right here, whenever I'm doing the dry brushing, so I can understand kind of the geometry of the model. You know what I mean? I can understand sort of, okay, so here's kind of how the model looks. Here's kind of where the detail needs to be strong. Here's where the highlights need to be strong. Here's where the color needs to be strong. And here's more of a shadow part. So I'm almost out of paint. That was like, I don't know, 5 drops of paint there. And very quickly, you can see what's happened. You know, we've kind of brought our little miniatures completely to life from where we started. Okay, well, this was like a quick video. I have to wait for this to dry. And then I promise you, I'm going to show you the progress as we continue. But I'm going to wait for this to dry. But look forward to making some more videos with you all. So today, I think, hopefully I made it sort of clear, like how I like to start my miniatures. A black prime, and then just some light color. Like I just happen to have this Vallejo color here, so don't get too hung up on it. But you know, it could be any other light color. Okay, we're going to talk more about paint. We're going to talk more about highlighting. We're going to talk more about a lot of things. But anyway, this is just a good start. Take care, guys. Thank you. Appreciate you very much watching.